Hi, this is Alimayo Arango of littleguycgi.com, and today I would like to show you how to make a quick proxy model to make animating easier inside of Blender 2.76b. So let's get started. Okay, if this is your first time in Blender, I recommend you go to File, User Preferences, go to Input, and then choose Select with left click. Blender's default select is with right click, and this may confuse you if you're coming from Adobe or other 3D programs. Also, while you're in here, go to add-ons and then put a check mark right here next to 3D view colon 3D navigation, and this will just make it easier for you to navigate around your viewport inside of Blender. Okay, when you first come into Blender, typically what you'll see is out of the multiple modes you can select in Blender, you'll be in object mode. Object mode is where you move full objects around. If you click onto your mesh and then click here, you can go into edit mode. Edit mode is where you'll actually manipulate your mesh by through selecting either vertices, edges, or faces. Okay, well, click back here, go back to object mode. If you click onto your armature, and your armature is basically what allows you to pose your character. With the armature clicked on, if you click here and then select pose mode is a mode where you can move your character around and put it into different poses. So I'm going to click here and go back to object mode. Okay, as far as manipulating your view in Blender, if you have a mouse that has a middle mouse button, you can hold your middle mouse button and you'll be able to manipulate your view this way. If by some chance you don't have a mouse or a middle mouse button, as long as you put a check mark next to 3D navigation inside of the user preferences where I showed you to, you'll have the ability to use this navigation tab right here. And basically you can just click your different views right here, and this will allow you to manipulate your view. And this is a very good option if you don't have a mouse available to you. However, even with a mouse, it's very nice to use this to manipulate your view inside of Blender. Okay, what you see in front of you is a character that I modeled and that I also rigged. I'll put a link up to a tutorial that pretty much shows you how to make a character very similar to this one. I'll also put a link in the description where you can actually download this character with this rig in it. Okay, what we're currently in is in Blender's default work mode. We're actually going to click here and then go to animation. And this is just a work mode that makes it easy to animate characters. While we're in this work mode, I'm going to click here to get this timeline to jump back to frame 1. Okay, as far as the purpose of this tutorial, with the armature selected, I'm going to click here and go to pose mode. And pose mode, like I said before, is a mode that allows us to pose the character. When I select this armature bone here, if I press I, this brings up Blender's insert keyframe menu. I can put a location in for location rotation. So I put a keyframe in, to have Blender remember this particular position of this bone. Now what I'm going to do is hover my mouse here. I'm going to hold shift and then press up on the press the arrow key up. And what that did was that made the timeline just jump forward 10 frames from where it was at, right? I'm going to press R to rotate on the y-axis and bring this arm down like this. Then I'm going to press I to bring up the insert keyframe menu, then choose location rotation. Okay, what I'm going to do now is hover my mouse over the timeline again. I'm going to hold shift and press the up arrow to jump forward 10 frames again. I'm going to click here, hold shift, and then press D while holding shift. And I'm just going to drag a duplicate of that original timeline over to here, then left click to lock in. Okay, now if I hover my mouse over the timeline, if I right click and hold, you can see this arm animating down then up. Okay, so this is why I'm showing you guys this very simple animation. I want you to look right here. So what I'm going to do is press play. And what you see right here, it says FPS. And with this very simple animation, you can see that the frames per second is about 9 frames per second, a little bit more than 9 frames per second at best, right? If I click here and I scroll down, our frame rate is 24 frames per second. Okay, and this 24 frames per second, what this is the frame rate that an animation will be outputted or rendered out of Blender at. So when you are looking at the viewport and the frames per second that you're getting are, 9 frames per second, a little bit better than 9 frames per second, it causes issues as far as trying to work with the animation since the output's going to be 24 frames per second. Okay, and the reason why the output is only, a little bit above 9 frames per second is the detail of the model. Like this mesh was basically made, I designed it so that it would animate fairly well. Also, whenever you have a selection, which is kind of strange, your frames per second tends to slow down. However, how do you deal with this? And the way you deal with this is by making a proxy model. I'm just going to, pause this by selecting right there. Okay, and what a proxy model is at least as far as for animation purposes, it's a lower polygon version of your character that you can use to animate with, that when you're finished animating with that proxy model and you're animating, very close to your actual frame rate, once that animation is done, the animation that you did on that proxy model still goes towards your actual character that you want to be seen basically when you actually render out your animation. Okay, as far as making proxy models, you should be aware there's a tutorial that came out not too long ago by a guy named Lee Salvemini. The guy is excellent in pretty much everything that I've ever seen him do. And what he does is he goes over very detailed how to make a extremely low poly proxy model. Okay, and a YouTube channel you can find that video on is called CG Masters. And if you really want to, probably know the best way to make an extremely low poly proxy model, I would recommend you go check out that video. Okay, so why am I showing you this video then? And the reason why I am making this tutorial is because I found the way to make a proxy model that is extremely quick. This method doesn't require too much thought, and it lets you get back to work as far as animating and not having to worry about lag from your frames per second very quickly. So let me show it to you now. Okay, so what we're going to do is click here, go to object mode. We're going to select our mesh. We're going to hold shift, then press D. I just pull to the side a little bit just so I know that I actually duplicated the mesh. I'm going to right click to get the mesh to jump back to its original position. Okay, and with that duplicated mesh still selected, what I'm going to do is press the M key. This brings up our move to layer. I'm going to select right here. And what this is going to do, it's going to move that duplicated mesh to the layer that's currently below the layer that we're currently on. Okay, now when you look at this layer panel, you can see this dot right here. So the darkened dot is the layer that we're currently on. And, the dot shows you that something is in that particular layer. So when we click here, now we go to the layer right beneath the layer that, the layer that we started with was on, right? Now, you don't see an armature right here. So what I'm going to do is click here. I'm going to select the armature. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press M to bring up our move to layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift. And then while holding shift, I'm going to select this layer here. Okay, by holding shift, what I did was I made this armature available on the current layer that we're in, as well as where the duplicated mesh is at. Okay, and because we duplicated the mesh that had the armature attached to it, this mesh still has all of the weight painting of the original mesh. So long story short, as we move this armature here, this mesh will move along with the armature. However, this armature is also associated with the original character mesh. So long story short, when we move this armature, both of the meshes will move. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the fact that this armature is connected to both of the two separate individual meshes now. Okay, so with our armature selected, we're going to press H to hide that armature. Then we're going to select our duplicated mesh right here. I'm just going to left click on it. I'm then going to click here, then go into edit mode. One of the things that slows down the frames per second as you animate is the fact that Blender actually has to try to calculate for as the mesh bends, particularly around the joints. So one of the things we want to do is to get rid of that extra calculating that's needed. And the way we can do that is just by deleting the geometry around the joints of this character mesh. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Control, hold the middle mouse button down, and push in just to zoom in a little bit more, like that. We're going to make sure that we're on Face Select. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to hold the Alt key down, and then we're going to click right here on this face. And because this face is connected to a loop of faces, by holding Alt, we can select this entire loop like that. Then we're just going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then we're going to choose faces to delete. Okay, we're going to do the same thing right here. We're going to hold Alt, and because we're on face select, when we select on this edge right here, that's in between these two faces, we'll select the actual loop of faces. So we have the loop selected there, so we're going to press X to bring up our delete menu. We're then going to choose faces to delete. Okay, now we'll hover our mouse right here. We'll hold Alt, we'll go right to the edge and select here. So we have that whole loop of faces there. We'll then hold Shift and select right here. We'll then press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, we'll do the same here. We'll hold Alt, go right to the edge. While holding Alt, select here, then press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, what we'll do now is we'll go right here. We'll hold Alt, select right on the edge, then we'll press X to bring up our delete menu. We'll then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan up some. We'll then go right here. We'll hold Alt, select right here, hold the middle mouse button to turn just to make sure we got the full edge loop. I'm then going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, now I'm going to hold the middle mouse button just to rotate the view slightly. I'm going to hold Alt, hover my mouse right here, and then left click. We'll then press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view slightly. Now what we want to do is go right here. We're going to hold Alt, select right here on the edge to select that whole edge of loops there. We're then going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view a little. I'm going to hold Alt, then select right here. I'm then going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, now I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view over. I'm going to hold Control and then hold the middle mouse button and push forward to zoom in. And by holding Control and pushing in while I hold the middle mouse button, it just gives me a smooth zoom. I'm going to hold Alt and then select this edge right here. I only was able to select part of the loop cut, so I'm going to hold Shift and select right here. Okay, now I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Shift again and select right here. Then here, I'm going to let go of shift and hold the middle mouse button to turn again. Now I'm holding shift again to select here. Now I'm letting go of shift, holding the middle mouse button to turn to view. Now I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then I'm going to choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold Alt and then select right here, holding the middle mouse button just to make sure I got that whole loop, which I did. So I'm going to press X to bring up the delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, now I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I am going to hold Alt and then select this edge right here. Then I'm going to press X to bring up the delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold down shift, hold Alt, and then while holding shift and while holding Alt, I'm going to select here, select here, select here, as well as selecting there. I'm then going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then I'm going to choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm now going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to press and hold control, then push forward while holding the middle mouse button. To zoom the view, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to turn to the side. I am then going to press and hold Alt, then select right here while holding Alt. I'm then going to press X to bring up our delete menu. I'm then going to choose faces to delete. Okay, now with that done, what we're going to do is click here, go back to object mode. We're going to select what looks like a wrench, which is our modifier panel. We're going to scroll down, and then where we have this subdivision surface modifier on here, we're going to take this down to 1. Okay, the goal of making a proxy model is to make your animating easier. Also, with your proxy model, you want it to look enough like the actual model that you want to appear in your actual video or animation. You want it to be close enough in appearance to that so that, you know, your animations work out how they should. Depending on how much detail is in the mesh that you are using for a proxy model, like in the process we use here where we duplicated the mesh, you might want to take your view all the way down to 1. I'm going to take it back up to 1. You can also just select this eye and also have the mesh appear as it doesn't have the modifier on at all. However, since this mesh was originally designed to be animated, we should be good and be able to work with this mesh as it is, just with the subdivision with a view of 1 instead of 2. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to press and hold Alt, then press the H key, which unhides our armature here. So then with the armature unhidden, we're going to select the armature. We're going to click here, then go back to pose mode. Okay, one thing I want you to be aware of is that there is a difference when you play an animation with armature bones selected and without armature bones being selected. So when you have armature bones selected, your frames per second will tend to slow down. So what I'm going to do is press A to deselect the armature bone right there. And then I want you to look right here. If you remember before, the last time I told you to look here, our frames per second were just above 9, not quite 10 frames per second. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press the play button here. And if you look at our frames per second, while they're not a perfect 24 frames per second, it's pretty close. If you remember, our render output frames per second is 24. So this is extremely close to being 24. And then if we want, we can actually pause this, select our mesh, select our modifier button, go down in the panel. Okay, then we can take this down to a view of 0. Then when I click play here, you can see that it's almost perfect. Every once in a while, it looks like it drops to 23 frames per second, or at least it was when I first clicked it, but there it goes. But, this is excellent as far as animating and being able to see our animations, how they actually look without having to go through actually, setting up an animation, rendering out the animation, checking the timing, coming back into Blender, readjusting our timing, rendering out, another video or movie. This is very nice to be able to have the ability to animate and get our timing pretty much right before we go to actually render out in animation or a movie. Okay, for now I'm going to turn this back to a view of one and select play right here. And we're getting a small dip, but again, it's still pretty decent even with this, and it's extremely close to our actual model. When I click here, I can see the actual mesh, and then you can see, how the frames per second is like how we originally saw, and you can just imagine, how this can affect timing. So when we're selected on our proxy mesh and our timing is much better, this just saves a lot of time because we can get our timing right here without having to try to set up an animation, render out a movie, check the timing, realize we have to adjust the timing, and then coming back into Blender, making another animation, and then, trying to adjust the timing again. Okay, guys, that's it for the tutorial. For all of those of you out there who like the videos on this channel, who leave comments, and who reshare these videos, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you would like to support this channel with a donation of any amount, you can just look to the upper right-hand corner and click on the I. And a donation of any amount would help me, and it just allows me to have more time to make more tutorials. If you are new to this channel and you like the videos on this channel and you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for viewing.